Before I get started, so I put together I put together a slide, brief, not really brief, but a slideshow on the history of Camp Onway, focusing specifically, I guess, on the first 30 or 40 years. Because most of you were kind of here in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, so there's not a lot of photographs, if any, from that time period. But this goes back to Camp Onway before it was owned by the Boy Scouts, and then where the Boy Scouts were camping before they bought Camp Onway, and then it will just go through a brief history of the camp. So if you don't see any photographs of yourself, there probably aren't any there. I do have a ton of photographs though from a lot of time periods. Before we started this though, I thought we would go around quickly and just say our names and maybe what year you were here, because I know there's a lot of people here. Don't take too much time, but my name is Mark. I started coming here in 1999, and I was on staff the final season at the Waterfront in 2007.
Wow. My name is Matt. My first year here as a kid was 1973, 74. On staff 82. And that's it.
My name's Arthur. I was here from 51 to 56, and I was on the staff for 2 years.
My name is Andrew, and I was here in 93.
My name is Dan, I was on staff in 2001.
My name is Eric, I was a camper 97 to 2000, and then on staff 2000 to 2004.
I'm Mike. I was a staff member from 2001 to 2003.
Kevin Seventy, I was a camper here from 73 to 78, and then I was on Waterfront staff in 79.
My name is Paul. I was here in the 1970s.
Jeff was a camper 91 to 96.
I'm Earl. I guess I brought Mark here the first year he was here. I was one of the Trail Eagle Scoutmasters from 2001 until last year.
Craig Milligan, camper 84 to 86, staff member 87 to 92, and bits and pieces here and there.
John Milligan, camper 1950 to 54 or 5. I came back as an adult in 1984 with him and David Julian.
Did you actually leave?
Well, I'm here again.
Phil Bond, I camper here from 77, 78, somewhere around there, to 81.
Wes was a camper from 91 to 96.
Joe Gemmel, I was here, I don't know, 75, 76, around that time.
Eric Milligan, camper from mid-80s, staff 94 and 96.
Bill Brunner. I started coming here in 69 to 70. Was on staff. I think it was 73 to 76.
Scott Barr, camper 92 and 93, and then staff from 94 to 2000 or 99.
John Mansfield, adult theater from 1998 until it closed.
Doug, staff 06 or 07.
I'm Tom, I was on staff from 99 off and on until 2007.
I'm Justin. I was a camper from 98 to 2004, staff from 2005 until the day I died.
I'm Mike, I was a camper from 2001 to 2003 and was on staff from 2003 to 2007.
Liam first came here, camper in 2001, worked here for the final 2 seasons, 06 and 07.
Dan Robichaux, I've been coming here since '93, and I was on staff from '01 to '07.
I'm Steve Lambert. I was a camper here in the mid-70s, staff 79, 80, 81.
I'm David Eckhoff. I was a camper 75, 76, 77, CIT 78, and then on staff 79, 80, and 81.
It's me, John Cornell. I was a camper here from 79 to 82, staff 83, 84.
We got some in the back too?
Joe Nuffy was a ranger here about 10 seasons.
Scott Thibodeau, I started about 20 years ago with my oldest boy. Hung around with Earl for a while doing the Eagle thing, and I'm still here.
I'm Paul, I was camper in the 70s, staff 79, 80, 81. I took John's place in 2007 for final year.
Andy Arnott, staff from 96 to 99, I think, and then 2000 and 2001.
Scott Gallagher, staff 99 to 2005.
Awesome. All right. If you have any questions as we're going through, feel free to ask me. This is, I guess, Camp on the Community Endeavor. This camp was built really by the community from Greater Lawrence, the Lawrence area, and they put a lot of time, a lot of money, and a lot of blood and sweat into this place, and we've all, I guess, benefited from that. There's 2 timelines I'm going to talk about quickly. There's Camp Onway before the Boy Scouts bought it, and then there's the North Essex Council along and through part of that time period. And then when the camp was bought in 1929 and officially opened in 1930, there's that timeline. And there's a lot of different places that were associated with this property. Or with the Boy Scouts, Camp Manning, which you'll hear about in a second, the Portsmouth YWCA, the Rockingham County YMCA. These are 2 organizations that camped here for many years. Camp Chadwick was another Boy Scout camp like Camp Manning. The Girls War Community Exeter Council in Exeter utilized this property. Camp Lincoln was, I guess, spawned from this place, or was there. Anyway, so where did the Boy Scouts start? Lawrence was, I guess, the central hub. It was one of the mill cities, Lawrence and Lowell, and they had a lot of financing or backing power back then. And so scouting was started in Lawrence. It actually started before the North Essex Council was formed. The first troop was actually in North End over at the North Parish Church back in 1910. William S. Nichols was the scoutmaster. The next troop that was formed was in Lawrence in 1911. From 1910 through 1925, Scouts in the Greater Lawrence area was run by volunteers. There was a 3rd-class council. There was no paid scout executive. In 1925, a group of citizens gathered to form the North Essex Council. These were just citizens that saw the benefit of scouting and wanted to, I guess, improve upon it. And Lawrence Lions Club, which will come back often throughout Onway's history as a major fundraising source and backing source, raised the funds, I think it was $7,000 back in 1925 to secure a scout office. It's located at 31 Jackson Street in Lawrence. The building's still there. It was one of the first-class councils in the area before Greater Lowell, before Lone Tree, before North Shore. And Harvey Pop Bacon was our scout executive. So Harvey Pop Bacon was hired as the scout executive in October of 1925. And one of his top priorities was finding a summer camp location, and it would prove to be rather difficult. Many locations didn't pan out. They looked at property on Country Lake, which eventually became Lone Tree. They looked at other pieces of property, and for one reason or another, never were able to get them. So it would take about 5 years to purchase their own camp. So where did they go camping these 5 years? So when you became a first-class council, you needed to have an official summer camp. The first place they went was Camp Manning. This is owned by the Malden Area Council. It's located in Pumps Pond. Some of the buildings still stand there today. But it would prove to be a little bit too close to the council for many people's likings. Here's a photograph of Camp Manning. I believe this building's still there. Yeah? Yeah. So that's Camp Manning in the 1926 with the scouts arriving. So after that, Greater Lowell formed their council, and they had a scout executive, Gordon Williams. And Gordon Williams and Pop Bacon were actually extremely close friends. They wrote back and forth to each other often throughout their tenure as scout executive. So they both had these kind of mill city places. So the second official camp, right up until Camp Onway was purchased, was Camp Chatter, and it was run by the Greater Lowell Council under the direction of Gordon Williams. Pop Bacon served on staff. The camp was located in Dunstable, Mass, and it offered the distance the Lawrence Scouts were looking for. Here's a photograph of Camp Chadwick. It's actually the full-scale photograph is over there. This is Pop Bacon right here in the white shirt. This is Chief Gordon Williams, two people over. And he was the chief, he was the scout executive in Greater Lowell. The photograph is actually at the Haverhill Public Library. They let me borrow it. But at this time period, the North Essex Council was not just North Andover, Methuen, Andover, North Andover. It included Haverhill, Boxford, Georgetown, Salem, New Hampshire was in there for a little bit. And this was because those areas didn't have a first-class council, and so they utilized, I guess, the resources available through the North Essex Council. This is a whaleboat. So Camp Chadwick had this military surplus or Coast Guard surplus boats. So whaleboat races and I guess sailing around on the lake was a good pastime. And you'll see later if there's a camp magazine or newspaper over there that when Wautucka was bought, scouts would go up there from Onway and they would participate in whaleboat races at Camp Wautucka. So now we step back and we look at Camp Onway before the Boy Scouts bought it. It was owned by the Rockingham County YMCA from about 1905, it's kind of unclear. They shared it, so like the month of July was the YMCA, the month of August was the Portsmouth YWCA, and they utilized the property. Percy Jewell was the first camp director. This is him right here. And you can't, I don't know if you can tell it, but they're wearing on their shirts what would be called the CO Award. So we had the CO Award when we were here. It was at Camp Onway before the Boy Scouts bought it. And there's 3 different stages. You get the CO Award with just the black letters. You get the upside down triangle the next year, and then you get this line underneath it the year after. This is an early photograph of the place. There was a camp newspaper called The Mirror. So when the YMCA was here, the dining hall where we're standing now was an open pavilion. There was a shack in the back where they did the cooking, stored the food and stuff. But the dining hall was just this open pavilion. They would put a canvas over the top of it. And that was their dining facility until actually a tornado came through, or a microburst, and knocked it down in the late 20s. And then it was rebuilt as a cabin kind of towards the end as the YMCA was leaving. This is the same photograph of that building. This is the tarp on top, and these are all the kids from the YMCA eating underneath it. That's the cook's cabin, or the kitchen in the back. And that's generally where we're standing, or where we're sitting right now, is where this is located. After the YMCA left, they went to Camp Lincoln, which is in Kingston, New Hampshire. Actually, it's like 3 miles away from Lone Tree. The Exeter Community Girls Work, I guess, rented or bought the camp, and they were working there. So this is about 1929, 1928. The girls sleeping in tents here, and these tents were located. There's 2 campsites. One was kind of off to the side over where the New McGee site is, and another one I believe was over kind of behind the dining hall, if I'm not mistaken. Someone over here might know better than me. Well done. This is a waterfront scene. I'm trying to figure out what cabin this is. If it's the McGee cabin that's down there now, I don't think it is. This is one of the waterfront cabins that they had, and this is the girls on Onway Lake. So that's that. So in 1929, the camping committee bought Camp Onway from E.S. Healy for $4,000. So this whole process of buying the camp was a little strange. E.S. Healy owned the land, and then the Community Exeter Girls Club owned pretty much all the buildings and camp equipment. And the land that they bought from E.S. Healy included the camp, and then it included these shacks or these cabins that were along the lakefront that were rented out by E.S. Healy to these families, and they would pay rent. And there's notes and letters going back and forth about collecting rent because people didn't often pay. It was a huge headache of the North Essex Council, and they eventually evicted everyone, and a lot of those cabins were torn down. A mortgage of $2,000 was taken out to buy the property of the camp. $4,000 was just for the land. They had to buy the stuff from the girls' community club for $1,400. The 4 buildings over here were the dining hall, which at that point was built as an actual dining hall. A craft cabin, which was here until the 50s. I think Don Milligan was talking about this cabin that disappeared all of a sudden. and there's two others. One was torn down right when the Boy Scouts bought the place, and the other is that building right there, which is actually the oldest building in camp, although a lot of people think St. James is. It's not. That building's the original. The awning part is part of the this fourth cabin that they tore down. They took the roof and built the awning piece there in the summer or fall of 1929. So this is a photograph. So Eastville, this is one of these cabins I was talking about that was kind of special along the waterfront. And I can't tell if that's the same one that was in the previous photograph or not. Yeah. So Pop Bacon was up here a lot, and the road to get up here, it took forever to get here from Lawrence. There's no highways, and then even the camp road was not the one we come in now. It was the one that kind of goes down by Gilwell Field past the rifle range. That's the road they used to have to come up to get to camp. When he first did here, one of the first couple things they did as a group of volunteers moved the dining hall back 60 feet to have a better view of the lake. One of the cabins was demolished and the roof was used to create the awning on cabin 7. The dining hall, the camp office, and the craft barn, which was located, I think, over there in that area, were, I guess, the original campsites or the buildings. So, less than 2 months after the camp was purchased, the stock market crashed. And the community chest, which was kind of the precursor to the United Way, couldn't meet their funding obligations. They told the North Essex Council that they would pay for the camp, pay for the mortgage, and they couldn't. And no one had the money to meet these, I guess, fiscal obligations. So the North Essex Council, there was a lot of fear in these executive board minutes that they'd have to sell this place or it would be repossessed and they wouldn't be able to use it because they couldn't pay the mortgage back. So this brings in, I guess, what I'm calling Camp Onway, the generous benefactor. In 1930, the council elected a new president. His name was Bertram E. Horn, and he was the owner of Watts Regulator company in Lawrence. They made steam regulator valves for the mills and for any other industry that was doing steam power. And he took the mortgage in his own name and paid the entire thing off over the next 10 years. So without any help from the community or from the Boy Scouts, to ensure that this camp could stay here, he took the land mortgage into his own name and paid it off. So without this generous act of kindness, who knows what would have happened to this place. There was no money to pay for it. And this started, Bertram E. Horn started a long relationship between the North Essex Council, his family, and Watts Regulator. This sign over there, it's the Bertram E. Horn. This was named Bertram E. Horn Hall in his honor. This is a picture of Bertram E. Horn. He owned a roofing company with his father, and then bought Watts Regulator with 2 other family members, bought them out eventually, and owned the entire company. Watts would remain strong throughout the Depression thanks to the mill and the industry that was turning to steam power, so they had a regular supply of business. Bertram was an avid outdoorsman. He would often go canoeing. He loved to fish. He started off as a district chairman for Andover. He served as North Essex Council president for 3 years, from 1930 to 1932. The dining hall is named after him. He actually passed away by drowning. He was up in Canada on a fishing trip and drowned unexpectedly. And so he passed away, and his son, George, I guess, took over the family business and would continue this relationship with Camp Onway. And then his grandson, Timothy, the same. And if you look at some of the programs that are back there, Watts Regulator Company donated a lot of money to print a lot of brochures that would go out over the years. Some other key people, and I'm not going to be able to touch on every key person, but these are from the, I guess, the start, was James Hennessy. His granddaughter was here earlier, and his great-grandson was here earlier. He was the president of the North Essex Council in 1929. He was also the superintendent of schools in Lawrence. Under his leadership, the council was purchased Camp Onway, and he remained active in scouting really for the rest of his life. He was big in Lawrence. He was the Lawrence, I guess, district chairman for many years. And his great-grandson, Mark, he was up here today, is involved in Boy Scouts. He served on staff at Wetumpka in 2011. So a rich family history there. This is him. There's another part of this photograph. He's presenting what's the Eagle Tribune Advancement Award to Troop 2, but I cut out the Scoutmasters for Troop 2 at Boothman. Harvey Pop Bacon, there's a photograph of him. He was hired as the first Scout executive of the North Essex Council. He spent the rest of his professional career here from 1925 to 1951. It's kind of unheard of now. Our Scout executives don't stick around for very long. Maybe that's a good thing. He was so well loved that the council dedicated a Statue of Liberty replica to him at their 50th anniversary, or sorry, their 25th anniversary in 1950. It was on the common, but it kind of was getting vandalized, so now it's in the Lawrence Public Library, and there's a plaque there that has his name on it. So when was the first time the Scouts went up to Camp Onway? It was in February of 1928. They left, this is Jackson Street, right outside the headquarters. They piled up into this truck and left to go camping in the wintertime. This is them arriving here in February of 1928. Right out here, you can kind of see the awning of the Cabin 7. And this is them leaving, I guess, after the end of their camping trip. They stayed inside Cabin 7. There used to be a stove inside there. And it was loaded up right into the back into the truck, which was down, and drove back home. This was taken from the first summer. So in 1930, the camp opened up officially for summer camp. Because when it was bought in 1929, it was at the end of the summer. So this is Harvey Pop Bacon here in the center, and the staff from 1930. This full-scale photograph, I think, is over there on the table. Yes?
Quick question. Did the Scouts come up for a week back then, a month?
I think it was a week or 2 weeks. And it was often, I think, at the troops' discretion upon how long they spend here, a week or 2 weeks. But I think generically a week. That's a good question. The parade field was located right out here, and there was a giant white flagpole that you'll see in a couple photographs, but the Boy Scout camp did not include the land that was up, I guess, where the parade field is now. That was purchased later. So this was kind of the center of camp for the longest time. The two campsites were Abenaki and Padilla. Padilla came from the name of William Pedler, who was the first council president. The HE is from Hennessy, James Hennessy, who I just showed you. And the LA came from Stanley Lane, who was the camping committee chairman at the time. The Cook's Cabin, which we know as St. James Cabin, was built, so that was the first building that the North Essex Council built. The director was Harvey Pop Bacon, the waterfront director was Wayne Sanders, and the ranger for that year was Norman Ashton. So this is one of the troops. This is from Methuen, actually. This is Jack Healy right here. He was from Troop, I think, 2 with Methuen. They didn't have the 50 part yet. He would go on the joint staff, and he would start the newspaper, the Onway Echo newspaper. I have a couple copies back there. So this is 1931. Staff, or actually I don't think this is the staff. I think it's the entire camp. So it's mislabeled, but this was taken in August. This was the dock, so they had a doctor up here to make sure everyone was doing fine. And he had a tent. There was a medical tent. There was no, I guess, infirmary building, which isn't a campus tent. And his name was John Mason, so that's a photograph of him. 1931, the front porch to the dining hall was added, and that feature would, I guess, stay a common feature throughout the iterations of the dining hall. They added a fireplace to the dining hall. The benches to the craft cabin were added. The Onway newspaper, the Onway Echo, was started by Jack Healy, the guy I just showed you, and Abbott Batchelder was hired as the nature director. This gentleman is related to Jim Batchelder. I don't know if anyone knows Jim. I don't know if it's his father or grandfather, but here's a picture of him in 1931 as the nature director with some bird that probably doesn't exist anymore.
He was the last one.
Yeah, that's So that's Abbott Batchelder, and I sent Jim an email to ask him about, because I knew his father was on staff or grandfather, so I'm trying to figure out what the relationship is there. This was the Padilla campsite sign. So they were pretty proud in creating these distinct campsites, and if you read the newspapers, they had these competitions between the two campsites to kind of see who would be like the patrol of the week. And so we talked about the Padillas and the Abenakis kind of doing it out in these different activities. This was the craft barn that was located here. I think it was over somewhat in that area. It was in one of the original buildings. Am I right there? Yeah.
Right over here.
Right over there?
Big
Okay.
box building.
The benches were added. So these benches outside were added in 1931. It was located around the entrance to New McGee. And it was torn down sometime in the 1950s. I'm not quite sure why, but it was.
Falling down.
Did it? Probably. So one of the iconic traditions of Onway is the Onway Cannon, and I spent a lot of time figuring out when this first kind of made its appearance, and it dates back, I think, to 1937. It was used for colors and, again, often for pranks, up through and including 2007. YouTube that, you'll find some creative videos there. This photograph, I think, is from 19 30 in 1949. I'm not sure if this is the same cannon that survived throughout the entire tenure. Yes?
Those cannons were made by Winchester Repeating Arms, New Haven. Are you familiar with Winchester? Those of you who've seen the movie Follow Me Boys, is one of those cannons, the upmarket model with the brass finishing on it. The one that our camp had was the lesser market model. That one was featured in that movie. And I don't know anything about cranks or anything, but they featured that. Very short barrel. You can't hunt with it.
Yeah, so here's a cannon in 1957 being shot off. Here's a Sea Scouter in the 1940s shooting the cannon off. This is in what, 70s shooting the cannon off. If you look at the newspaper, the first page, the Onway Echo from 1937 talks about this cannon being fired off at midnight right outside this building right here, to the disgrace of Harvey Bacon, I'm sure. So 1940, so this is the 10th year anniversary for the camp. The George Wilson Health Lodge, which is that building right up there, was built. Onway celebrated its 10th anniversary. The mortgage was burned on July 21st, 1940, and this is when the dining hall was dedicated to Bertram E. Horn, and paid off the entire mortgage to the camp. So this is the construction of the Wilson Health Lodge. It was funded and built by the Lawrence Lions Club, and it was kind of one of the first major projects or undertakings here in terms of raising money and building, I guess, a substantial cabin. And these are photographs from the dedication day. I'm not sure who these people are. One of them might be George D. Horn. One of them is the president of the Lions Club. But this was at the dedication of the George Wilson Lodge. So here it is here. Here's some scouts outside. And then this is right out front here. Here's cabin 7. The Lions Club also donated a canoe. This is the flagpole I think I'm talking about, this tall flagpole. So as we'll talk about the dining hall for a little bit. This is the dining hall when they bought the camp. And you can kind of see, I think this piece was the original piece that then that canvas tarp piece was in the front. There was no chimney, it was kind of a piece together building. This is another view of it in the winter of 1930. So anyway, so I don't have a lot of photographs. They knocked that building down, or it fell down, or it burnt down. They built another building, which burnt down in the 1970s. And there's those flyers over there. You can see the iterations of dining halls in that third thing from the right. So this is a photo of the aftermath of the fire in the 1970s that burnt this place down to the ground. This was an inside of it before it happened. This was an ordeal from 1957. And then back to my fire photos, just I guess the carnage that ensued. Do we know how it went? I forget what happened. Yes, Brother Rainey.
Evidently there was a gas leak in the kitchen, and the cook came in to start the fire, like the stove for the morning. It blew up, the building literally blew up. And he was burnt.
He got burned in that fire.
He lived though, yeah.
Well, yeah.
So the current dining hall that we're standing in was built, but it wasn't, I guess, as it is now, it's this piece right here. And in 1993, the group called the Friends of Onway raised about $70,000, and they renovated this entire building. So they knocked down the chimney that was there originally, and then they pretty much sawed the building in half. And so you have the kitchen part and the dining hall part. And it's weird, they kind of left everything where it was, like the plaques, everything's in there. And if you look, like, I don't think they're in here, but like all the tables are still here. And then they dug a foundation underneath it, so they had a contractor come in, and this is how the basement got built. So they jacked the cabin up. This is the rock that's down there. If you've ever been in the basement, there's this random rock that's kind of like, what's this doing here? They tried moving it and couldn't, so it just stayed there. So this is, they jacked the cabin, the dining hall up, and then they expanded off and were building the annex over there. So this is halfway through the project after they raised the dining hall up a bit. And now this is the construction of the annex. Then this is inside. It might be tough to see. This is the rebuilding of the fireplace. So this is that fireplace back there. This is the flue. These are all the rocks. And so that's them rebuilding the fireplace after this was built. Yes?
It wasn't really, say, knocked down. That's kind of it's an appropriate term it was very carefully photographed and piecemealed out so that the roof retained and all of everything in here. A lot of people have spent a lot of time marking what rocks went where so that it was built. It's about the same as it was when it went out the door.
Oh.
So it wasn't it was very involved.
All right, okay.
It was a very involved project.
So then the windows that were here, which match these, they popped out and put in the annex. And this is the building on the side. This is inside the interior before they did some of the finishing work. Another interior shot, and then this is kind of the final product, which looks very similar to as it does today. Dumoulas, Mark Bassett, so Dumoulas was a guy was from Lowell and just involved in Lawrence and Lowell, and so Bob Mundry, who was the council president for a while, he served up here, I think he was camp director, was very close friends with Dumoulas. And so he kind of, was like, oh, we could use some money, support us. So they had Dumoulas Day up at Camp Onway, and this was a long-standing tradition, I think, when they had the families up, that it was be sponsored by Dumoulas. So this is a more recent photograph of Dumoulas Day. This is an older photograph, and you can barely see it, but it says George A. Dumoulas Day right here. This is the old dining hall, one of the older dining halls, before it was raised up. This is the Charette Memorial after it was, I guess, enclosed. It used to be an open pavilion. And this box in the front is covering up the wooden Indian that used to be out front there. If you go walk up, the foundation piece is still there. But Charette was originally an open pavilion, and then it was sided, I believe, by Chignas Lodge, and the doors are added. This is this Reinhold? I'm not sure.
That's my dad.
Is it?
Rayom.
Ed Ram, okay, that's right.
John Rayom next to him.
Yeah.
And that's Tom Conlon.
All right.
From Post.
So this is, they moved the Indian from, I guess, Charette to the in front of Takesian, which was a process because it weighed a lot. So they had a tow truck come in. I don't know if it was Trombley's or not, but they had a local tow truck company come in to move the thing. So they just picked it up, and there it is now in front of Takesian. And unfortunately, termites got into it, and it was kind of eaten away, and then it was removed completely well before I ever got here. So that's the wooden Indian. This is a photograph of the construction of the amphitheater by Jack Ingalls and Chignas Lodge. They used railroad ties from the Boston and Maine Railroad, this is Jack right here, I believe, and you can kind of see this is the water area. But it's interesting in how the landscape looked kind of different from as I see it now. And then this is, I guess, one of the first iterations. It was just called the Onway Amphitheater, and then it was later dedicated to Jack Ingalls. Some years later. Now coming back a little bit, this is Troop 5 in Lawrence House. They had their own band, and they would come up. So this is Troop 5 here. This is Harvey Pop Bacon, and this is Parents' Night, or Visiting Day. So interesting. You don't see the Boy Scout troops with bands anymore. This is George Horn. So this is the son of Gertrude E. Horn, who took over the company and who traveled extensively. I guess selling these pressure-regulated valves. He donated a motorboat in 1968 to the camp, and so that's George, I guess, handing it off to the waterfront director. I don't know how long it lasted, but realizing how much these things are used.
Yeah.
What?
We're still using it in the night.
Yeah. All right, probably. So you might have seen those signs when you were coming in at the end of the street. There's one of them on the back of the dining hall on the fireplace. These were made in 1934 by this gentleman named M. Ellen Walsh. I have no clue who he is, where he came from. Several were made, though. They pointed people to different directions in camp. That one came into my possession. The nurse that was here in 1999, her name was Kathy O'Neill. She was my grammar school nurse at Kittredge Elementary in North Andover. She worked here in 1999 and knew I was involved in Scouts. And somewhere in like the 2000s, she saw it in her neighbor's trash. She was like out to go into the trash. So she took it, and then I saw her kind of, I think 2005, 2006. She was like, oh, I have this Camp Onway sign, you want to take it? Sure, I did. Never really kind of realized how far back it went. This is a photograph of the sign in around 1934. And this is the sign being brought up, so this is how I dated it. This is Mrs. Walsh, which must be related to someone, aunt to someone from Troop 11 in 1934, so this is her bringing this sign up to Camp Onway. A rare find of photographs, but there it is. There's some other pictures of it around. This was colors in 1931. Just, I guess, right outside here. This is the flagpole that was kind of iconic. It was the white giant white flagpole. It got cut down, apparently, because of termites. I think sometime in the 50s. Yeah, okay. This is just another photograph of kids visiting the camp. So they bought this camp truck that would use to shuttle kids on camping trips from Lawrence up here. This is Shorty.
Oh, yeah.
How are you? This was just a random photograph I had around, but a pretty iconic gentleman. He worked, I think, as a janitor at the building where the scout office was, and for several years he was very involved in the Chivas Lodge and the camp. And there's that sign where we saw Shorty's growing that was on the telephone pole, and so that's the man behind the sign. Does somebody still have that sign? I think so, yeah. I think it's somewhere. This is Ed Ram. The Nature Lodge was named after him or dedicated to him. Dan Robichaud's father actually petitioned the council to name that building after him. There's a nice letter that used to hang in the Nature Lodge speaking to that. I guess going back a little bit further, I'm sorry this got kind of put out of order. This is the Camp Bugler back in 1931, and a lot of these photographs came from Dick Takesian. So here's a photograph of Dick Takesian, who was pretty instrumental in the camp, and he was meticulous. He made scrapbooks every time he came here and labeled everything. You'll notice there's numbers in the bottom, and meticulously detailed what every kid is, what their name was, where they were from, so that's been very helpful in my experience to kind of piece together the history. He made meticulous notes. His scrapbooks are now up at Camp Carpenter in the museum that's up there, and his patch collection's there too. It's kind of tough to get in there. I've been kind of unhappy with them because his scrapbooks are like locked in this vault somewhere else in camp, and you have to have like the 5-digit key code to get in, and they won't give it to me. So, and his patches are up there too. I tried to get them for this weekend, but they wouldn't let them out of their site. So, this is the Quonset hut. It was military surplus. I don't know what year this is from, but it's early period. They put a garage door on it. My story from this is when they got this new motorboat donated in, I think, 2006. They went to go park it in there, and they backed it in, and it just fell right through the floorboards. So that building's still there. They redid the floor, I think, so it's a little bit sturdier than it used to be when we were here. There's the flagpole, and I think some of the photographs you'll see, I don't know if someone climbed it, but there's a lot of aerial shots in the old photographs over there of the waterfront. And I can only imagine that that must have been how they got it, as they climbed up this flagpole. There's notes of them repainting it, so that was a pretty big endeavor. This is the, I guess, cabin 7 with the North Essex Council flag out front during the summer. It was the camp office and then turned into the library when the other camp office was built, which was the McGee building. This is just an active day on the waterfront with some canoes. Just very busy place. This was the Camp On My band, circa 1940s. I don't know who the band leader is. I don't know where these guys came from, but there they are. This is 1931, so these were the patrol leaders from camp. So they've got a photograph of them. You'll notice the Camp On My honor shield here, and if you look closer, it says 31 in it. So the honor shield, which was a bunch of them over there, was kind of the precursor to this Red Sea Blue Award. So if you did service projects throughout the summer, you could earn this felt patch. And Dick Takesian was, I guess, known for earning 12 of them, which is kind of unheard of. The collection I have over here, Jack Fascioni earned 6. His patches are over there. There's another gentleman from Troop 12 in Lawrence, Joe Pelletier. He earned a couple. And then somewhere else on the table, there's a nice letter from Harvey Pop Bacon that was written to the scout named David Hannon from Lawrence. And his patches are over there. I found his scrapbook on eBay. And there's a beautiful written letter from the Harvey Pop Bacon thanking Dave for all his hard work, asking him to be on staff. And they kept meticulous details of which kid got what number patch. So David Hannon, I think, was 113, so he was the 113th kid to get this patch, and this was his first patch. So they kept very detailed records of these things. And these shields, I guess, were used up and through the 50s. They kind of got smaller as time went on. And then it switched over to the Red Sea Blue Award, and then there was like the CO, and then the CO2, and the CO3 awards. This is Paul Roy. He was the waterfront director in 1947. His brother is Greenie Roy, right back here. That's Brother Rainey. That's his brother. He was on staff in 1947, and they also, during Scout Week, they would have scouts going in different parts of the city. So a scout would become the mayor for the day, or the police chief, or the head of engineering. And so Paul Roy was at the radio station in Lawrence giving an address during Scout Week. So that's a photograph of him. I've yet to find a picture of him actually up here at camp, but if I find one, Brother Reno, I'll let you know. This is the waterfront tower. So some people were down there saying, well, that's not the waterfront tower. They knocked that down. This is the waterfront tower. It was built from funds with McGee in 1946. Later years, they added this back storage area, I think sometime in the 1990s, when it was renovated. That was used for storage, and then also the waterfront staff slept there. And they remodeled this top piece, kind of got rid of this overhang, and built a different tower up there. So that this same structure right here is still there. It's that same building, but it just kind of got added on to over the years. This was the McGee cabin after it was built in 1957, so that took over as the administration office. And this building out here actually became a library and then just a CIT cabinet or cabin. So this was the McGee fund that donated money to build this administration cabinet. It became a trading post. It was the Scoutmaster Lodge. It was served many different purposes over the years. This is before I think they did work on the ball field, so they leveled this ball field and turned it into a parade field. I think the Army Corps of Engineers came in and did that when they built the road into camp.
Who remembers the Coke machine?
Yeah, that's right there.
Glass balls.
Yeah.
Glass balls.
Glass bottle, I see, 25 cents. Now I'm reading something.
Yeah. It's another photograph, I think that's in color, of the same building. This is the non-denominational chapel that was built by the Greater Lawrence Council of Churches in 1955. And when I was here, it was known as the Loon Lodge. It was originally open front. When we came, it was a garage door. This building's still here. It's been vinyl sided, I think, but it's still over there. I thought it was named after someone, George Wilson, I'm not sure. This is Richard or Dick Chakesian's children. So this is Richard Jr. and Daniel Chakesian here at Camp Onway. Daniel Chakesian lives in North Andover, and this weird story that my mom ran into his mailbox. And that's how I kind of figured out that he was living and still around. I invited him up. He might be showing up this weekend, I don't know. But a very nice gentleman, and just a lot of great stories about camp and his father and the time up here. This is taken from the porch of the McGee cabin that was down there. That was bought by the McGee Fund. The cabin was, I guess, one of these summer cottages for someone, and we bought the cabin and the land. And this was the construction of, I guess, the Lawrence area cabin. It was Lawrence and Philly. So this is the construction of that family unit up there that became the senior staff cabins later in Army's history. This is a double photograph. Maybe the next one. So yeah, so this was these totem poles were pretty iconic. They were here. This is interesting because when I was here, they were kind of painted. Not much detail as these, but there was a color photograph that was back there that showed the detail of the painting. Here's the McGee cabin in 1954 when it was bought. That front part was originally screened in. That served as a camp breakfast cabin for several years. This is Harvey Poppy and Gordon Williams. This is actually up at Camp Watauga in 1937. So when Camp Watauga was bought, Gordon Williams and Harvey Poppy were still very close friends, and we invited them up. Dick Chakesian is the one that's behind the camera taking these photos. And they went up for a day to visit the camp and see what the Greater Little Boy Scouts were, I guess, up to. So these two old friends, I'm sure, were chatting. I think there was a steamboat on Northwood Lake that they rode that day. So Dick Chakesian took a bunch of scouts from Onway and went up there to visit. Here's a hike, I guess, to the lemon squeeze along the Boston and Maine Railroad from 1956. This was a major way of transportation to get up to camp. And Bob Mundry, I was talking with his son and his grandson, and that's how he used to get here. So he would leave Lawrence and he would go travel up Boston Maine Railroad, I think to Manchester and then over. And you'd have to pretty much fly over the guy, and they would drop you off kind of right down there. You would walk up that path and then come into the camp. And as Bob Mundry's son said, it's like you would pack everything and you'd go up once and then stay for the entire summer and then go back because it was an all-day affair to stay up there on the trains. These railroad ties would be used in the amphitheater after the Boston and Maine Railroad kind of stopped running service. these tires were utilized, and they're still down there in the amphitheater to build that. This is another one with Camp Onway signs, similar to the one that's back there. And then Pop Aiken Road, so when they built that road in to camp, it was named after Pop Aiken. There was a sign that used to be out there that was dedicated to him. For several years it was out there, so that's the Camp Onway sign. So this is kind of, I guess, the end of, the stuff I had. These are some old photographs. If you're ever wondering how we got our council shoulder patch, the old North Essex Council one, there was a contest. So these are just some other things I came across while looking up Camp Onway. So these were entry designs for the shoulder patch, and the one that I guess you see over here, the yellow one, won. But these are some of the other, contestants in that endeavor. There's a Camp Onway patch that's eerily similar to this from the 1970s, I think. These are some more recent photographs that I found, and people that are here. This is Mike Brady, I believe. I think this is Dan Hogan. That's my dad sitting around. This is for the Onway Decathlon, I believe. Probably 2003, 2002. This was a classic night. They had these David Cow bobbleheads that were not selling at all at the trading post. And so someone came up with the brilliant idea that you bob one, you get the kind of satin you want in the face. And so they sold them all. So this was, I guess, that night. Pretty much everyone got pie in the face somehow. This is Joe Neswitz. This is Lunchbox, who's pretty instrumental here. I'm not sure what about pie. This other gentleman. This was, I guess, this is 1999, the first time we were up here. Here's Scott, right? It's not you? Yeah. Here's doing some sewage work. 1999. What? I don't know who this kid is that's just kind of sitting there, but. That's the Camp Onway sign. This was donated by the Lawrence Lions Club. And there's a nice newspaper article about it that they came up here. This is before they kind of cut that parking lot off to the other side. But that was the entranceway that many of us knew for several years coming here. And I think that's all I have for you today. There's a lot more stuff. If you want to see any other photographs, come see me. Before I wrap up, I am looking for anything. I'm kind of trying to create a digital archive of anything that I get my hands on with the Camp Onway photographs, newspapers, articles, whatever. So if you have anything, let me know. I'm specifically looking for, and there's a picture of it over here, a pennant. They used to have Camp Onway pennants, felt. I've never seen them in real life, but there's photographs of them. That's something I like to get my hands on. The other thing is that in 1930, the first summer, this gentleman named Carl M. Courier, who worked for the Eagle Tribune, came up here and took video films with an 8mm film camera, and they were shown at executive board meetings, and they're also used to promote the camp with troops around that time period. That's something else I'm trying to look for. I don't know if they still exist, but it would be interesting to see videos from camp, or films from camp from the 1930s. So if anyone knows anyone that might know anyone, what? You know where they are?
No, I know, but I thought I'd like to make a comment to you folks about the history of the camp since it was sold.
All right.
Okay. When the camp was sold to the church, they have become very good stewards of this camp and of the land and of the buildings. Because if you walk around the camp today, you'll notice that all the buildings are still here. There have been no major changes here, and basically the church runs a girls' camp here in the summertime. And they have it divided up, the church has this thing called stakes, and there are so many stakes in the church, and they come here for 1 week, they bring their own staff, they have a nurse that comes, they have a waterfront director, and the girls have a girls' camp, and they swim and they boat and they do all that stuff. There have been some major infrastructure changes made. There's a brand new 15,000-gallon water tank up on the hill where that old rusty one was. Remember going down inside that, Johnny? Shoveling that out? 2 brand new water lines that come all the way down through camp, and some new fire hydrants. There's new hot water heaters here and there, and you notice that the dish cabinets are gone and they put some windows in. The first gentleman that was in charge of the camp, his name was Mike Pouliot, and he was a big scout also. And I spent a couple of years with him. I got sold along with the camp. And the council asked me to be the liaison between the Boy Scouts and the church, because they felt that somebody ought to show them how to shut the water off and, you know, where the electrical was, you know, just the mechanics of the camp. And he unfortunately passed away. His daughter and son-in-law were the caretakers. And just like John, Javi, and Paul, you know, they were the rangers, they were the caretakers. Now we have Ed York and his wife Vicki, our church members. They live in the house out on the street. Ed works full-time as an electrician and then works full-time here, taking care of the place. And they have been very gracious to the Boy Scouts. You want to come up here in winter camp, you can come up here in winter camp. Just call up and make a reservation. This thing that's happening today, it's been a very good working relationship between the Boy Scouts and the church. And I feel good that you are all here today for this reunion, and I hope it happens again and grows, because it's something that can happen here. And the people here are very happy to see you here also. So it's been a good relationship between the church and the Scouts that can continue to grow. When the church is not using this for their program, the Scouts are invited to come here. So it kind of still lives on. It isn't like it got bulldozed and turned into condos, and you can still come back here and see the dining hall and see all the cabinets. It's the best outcome that it could have been. And you know, Ed and Vicki are your hosts today. They made this happen for you guys, and it's good to see a lot of the faces here that I haven't seen for a while, and I'm glad to see you all.
Just before I end up, I think Andy's going to say something. Just want to thank the following place. The Lawrence History Center, most of the stuff, I don't own a lot of the stuff, I do own some of it, but a lot of it came from Lawrence History Center, which you can go to. It's on Essex Street. They have pretty much all the records from the North Essex Council from 1925 through 1993. The Fascioni family for donating a lot of the pictures and patches. Al David, the photographs of the dining hall reconstruction are all his. Timothy Horn, who's been extremely kind to me, to let me come and visit him at Watts Regular and get these photographs of his grandfather and tell me about that history. It's been very instrumental in helping me piece together that piece of history. Haverhill Public Library for that photograph that's over there. The Key Foundation and Brian Leveo, so that's the Camp Chatter piece of this. They're the group that kind of oversees Watauga and their history. The Lone Tree Spirit Foundation, Keith Miller. Harry Taylor was up here earlier with his father, who was on staff in 1939. Which is pretty amazing. There's two photographs over there from 1939. He was up here for a bit, had some old patches, and he was an interesting fellow to talk to. Lawrence Lee Scouting Museum, even though I'm a little upset with them right now, but they did let me access a lot of the scrapbooks to get photographs of the Fusion family. So I know I left out a lot of important people, a lot of things from the 80s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and so on. This is kind of the first half of the camp history. Maybe if we do this again, we'll keep going in years, sequential every time after. There you go. Thank you.
I can't thank Mark enough for putting together a great presentation. Part one, you guys should come back to the sequel. It's going to be awesome. You got to talk yourself to the sequel. Right? All right. I would like, again, to take the opportunity to thank the Yorks, the LDS Church. I mean, it's been absolutely awesome how welcoming they've been, especially for me to be able to plan an event like this. They've been absolutely accommodating, absolutely wonderful. So again, please give them I do have something else to say.
Something to say!
Thank you. There are still plenty of spots for the campfire, and since there's plenty of you here now, we should all have a song.
A song.
Or a skit.
Skit.
Or a cheer.
A cheer.
That's what I said. So, So make sure that you guys take the opportunity. If you can't remember the song, that's okay. We'll watch you fumble your way through it anyway. So whatever you can do, even if you can do a little jazz dance routine, I don't care. Go ahead and sign up for the campfire over there. If you were staying overnight or you're interested in purchasing a patch for the event, the patches did not come in on time. I do apologize for that.
Wait, I have patches to hand out, but they're different patches.
Okay, Mark has different patches. Different. So please make sure you fill out the patches form. I know it's registered for overnight and who's not, so if you have not registered for overnight, I'll be contacting you if you want to go ahead and purchase a patch. Just put your name on the list. All right? That being said, since we have everybody here, I'm going to go ahead and start off the camp-wide game here. Because rather than moving it to the dining field, as I believe I put in the schedule, or the ball field. So I'm going to go ahead and start things off here. What do you guys think? Good idea?
Can I say one thing first?
Sure.
Someone lose a wrist, a brace?
There is a wrist brace
I know.
on the rock.